everybody, it's John, your Indian Cinemaniac, back, but with something a little different. That's right. Welcome to John Talks Indian Cinema. So I'm going to do something a little different on this one. I've been reposting a lot of the shows from Yippee-Ki-Yay, Mother podcast, to build up the content. And I decided to do a little intro to the next rebroadcast that I'm going to do, or the reposting. And I'm going to repost the RRR episode that the whole group did on September 22nd, 2022. So over 2 years ago, or close to 2 years ago. And the reason why I wanted to do the intro and post this one, there's two reasons. One, it might get a lot of views, okay? But it's also that's secondary. The reason why I'm posting it, first of all, it's the entire show with all the Yippee-Ki-Yay gang, right? My brother Ralph, Drew, Sean and Debbie, and Chris Coker. So you're going to get to see all of us talking about this film. And the way that came about, at that point in time, we were doing, so the premise of the YKY show is bring a movie that you want everyone to watch, talk about it, and then let me know what everyone thinks about it. That's basically what it is. So you usually brought on films that you loved. Well, we changed it around that time, and we did a bring a movie you've never seen. So you run the risk of maybe not liking the film that you actually bring. Well, Drew brought RRR. Now I had watched The Critical Drinker, and I watched him do a review on RRR, the greatest movie no one's ever seen at the time. So I knew something about it, but not much. And so we watched this film, and of course, it started the whole Indian film journey that we've been on, and especially myself for the last couple of years. Um, and going back and watching the show and thinking about the movie, it's funny because even as I did some research on this, it's amazing. Because remember, the only Indian movies that I ever saw were these grainy color films with terrible sound. And they just didn't look like anything I'd be interested in. Well, then I see this movie that first of all, the action was so over the top. That opening scene when he jumps into the crowd and is fighting everybody, I was like, what the hell is this? So that took me by surprise. But the thing, and I know I've mentioned this several times, but it's worth repeating. When they break out in that amazing musical number, Natu Natu, that for me was the thing that I was like, I cannot believe in the middle of this film, they're dropping this amazing number. And I was like, wow, that is so cool. And of course, since then, it's won the Oscar for Best Original Song. We were all thrilled about that. But I give you a little background. The director was S.S. Rajamouli, who also, three things I've seen, Bahubali, the beginning and conclusion. I like the beginning much more than conclusion. And he also directed Iga, which I loved that movie. We reviewed that on the Big Show, and everybody loved it. It was a strange movie, but I really enjoyed it. The title came about, and most of you know this, but if I'm repeating it, I'm sorry. RRR was originally the three names of the two actors and the director, and then he ended up changing it, and it became Rage, War, and Blood in Telugu language, I believe. The cast: N.T. Rama Rao Jr., who I have not seen anything in. With all the films I've watched, I haven't seen anything he's done. So I am going to ask you guys if you have a recommendation of a film that you think I should watch with him in it, let me know what that is. Ram Charen, who I have seen in a film called Rangaslatham, which I enjoyed. Now, here's the other thing, because again, this was the first Indian film I've seen. Well, now you revisit it. Ajay Devgan is shown in the flashbacks, and I'm a huge Ajay Devgan fan. I can't even tell you how many movies I've seen him. Singham, Bola, Drishyam 1 and 2. I've seen so many movies of him. Love him as an actor. Alia Bhatt, who is in Gully Boy, Rocky Loves Ronnie, and the latest thing I've seen with her, Darlings. Shreya Saran from Drishyam 2. Alison Doody from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, who I got to be honest, I did not recognize her in the film. Of course, she's, older, but I didn't recognize. And Ray Stevenson, who was in Thor, the other guys, Punisher, Warzone, done a lot of TV. Now, I will say this: it's funny now that I know everybody's voices. I realized that when I originally watched this film, I watched a really bad dub because the thing I noticed was the English-speaking actors' voices were dubbed in the version I watched, not their real voices. When I rewatched it, I watched the right dub of it. So that's something that I picked up along the way. Anyway, um, they're based on historical characters, and they're Alluri Sita Ramaraju and Komaram Beam, who were freedom fighters who actually never met. So Rajamouli says this was like a fantasy superhero film, bringing them together. Natu Natu, I didn't realize at the time, was shot at the presidential palace in Ukraine, which is kind of sad knowing what they've been going through for the last couple of years. And finally, I want to give a shout out to M.M. Kiravani, who wrote Natu Natu, since it won the Oscar. So as you watch this, remember, this was the first exposure for, I think, all of us to the Indian film industry. And it set that show down a path. And then about halfway through that, I said, you know what? I'm going to watch more of these films, because I was really getting into the movies and the actors who I really like. And I mentioned this a lot too, but I saw Three Idiots, and I became a real big fan of Amir Khan. And then people started talking about SRK, who I didn't know anything about. And I started watching him. Now I'm really into these films. And I also love that this film is the one that got us views. But more importantly, it got us a lot of back and forth with the viewers, something we really didn't have prior to this. And that's my favorite part of this whole thing, is that you guys respond and I respond back to you, and it's just wonderful. So that's why I wanted to give you this little intro. So this is a long one. This isn't 15 minutes. In fact, it's almost an hour. So check it out. See what that, remember when we were all together doing these shows, it's a little nostalgic to go back and look at that, but I hope you really enjoy it. And thanks for watching. And by the way, if you get the chance, subscribe, hit the notification button, hit the like button. And again, the slow process, I did just get my 50th subscriber, so thank you for that. But we're looking to get back up there to where we were, and I need your help with that. So if you know anyone might like this, share it with them, please. Okay. So now on with the retrospective of Yippee-Ki-Yay Mother Podcast, RRR. Enjoy.
Welcome to Yippee-Ki-Yay Mother Podcast Classic. I'm Ralph Quattrucci.
I'm Sean Paul Murphy.
I'm Deborah Murphy.
I'm John Quattrucci.
I'm Chris Coker.
And I've been thinking all week about what John's glasses remind me of. I figured it out. It's Menachem Begin.
Oh, that's an interesting poll. All right.
It's a good look.
Well, oi. Okay. Well,
Oi.
I don't even know how to start. Okay. So, Drew, you're never ever going to use your name again. Is that what we're going with now?
I don't know. I feel like everybody who needs to know knows.
Well, that's true, but we may get some new viewers, but that's up to you. All right. I know Sean's not ready, but let's go. Let's do a little round of what'd you watch. Let's start with Chris Coker.
Okay. I actually rewatched I think it's 2005 film, Constantine, starring Keanu Reeves.
Fun.
I love that film.
Because I saw recently that it looks like they may be making a sequel after 17 years. Yep. The film itself was okay. I remember seeing it in the theater and enjoying it. Mostly, partially due to the all of the supporting actors in there. Tilda Swinton is in there, and she just has that great kind of androgynous look as the Archangel Gabriel, I think it was. And then Peter Stormare was Lucifer. And anyway, basically, it's pretty good. So I'm excited about a possible sequel. I actually I bought it because that was the easiest, cheapest way to get it. The DC comic or CW version called Constantine also. It's funny, they can never really use the real title of the comic book, which is Hellblazer. It's a little too close to Hellraiser, I think. But also it's very Well, it has hell in the title, and I think that would scare off a lot of people. But anyway, I like that series. It's pretty good. I'm actually finishing it up. I bought it during the pandemic when I was
Kind of a series of books, or have you seen? There's a TV show.
No, it's
as well.
the TV show is.
Okay.
I've read a lot of the Constantine comics, at least all that the Baltimore County Library had available. I really hit the library pretty hard during the pandemic. It was really a crutch for me. But that being said, I enjoyed the movie. I'm looking forward to a sequel, which actually makes kind of sense. As I know I've mentioned the Sandman a couple of times on here, and the John Constantine character shows up in Sandman. But in this version, it's Joanna Constantine, who played by Olivia Colman, not Olivia Colman, but
Jenna Coleman.
Jenna Coleman, thank you. One of the companions
Doctor Who.
From Doctor Who.
Yeah.
And she's fantastic in it. And at first I thought it was a little odd that, Joanna Constantine is a character and she's basically playing both like her granddaughter and her great grandmother or something like that. She's playing the same, not the same character, but two, multiple generations removed. And I thought it was, pardon me, a little weird that they just made her a woman instead of John Constantine. But if they're doing a movie, that makes perfect sense. They might be, they might not have either access to that character, or they're like, hey, we're going to do something with Constantine. We don't want to mix it up. That's always a possibility. But anyway, that's what I've been watching.
They were going to reboot Constantine with a different actor.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy who just took over Warner Brothers brought Keanu Reeves back into it.
Oh, cool.
That's what happened.
David
Yeah.
Zaslav, my boss.
Yeah, and Keanu Reeves was into it because he likes the movie Constantine. He likes it a lot.
They also
And
brought
plus,
back
his
Francis
prospects have
Lawrence.
really gone up.
Oh, the director.
Yeah, which makes me think it'll probably be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Constantine
It'll
was
be
good. All right,
interesting.
Drew, what
So-
did you watch?
Well, I watched a movie called Goodnight Mommy, the remake of the 2014 film from Austria. This one came out this year, starring Naomi Watts. It was pretty faithful to the plot of the movie, in which a mother has twin boys and she has some kind of operation and she has to wear a mask over her face, and her kids start to suspect that maybe it's not her. And the first version was very brutal and violent, and I thought it was okay. And this version is a lot less brutal and a lot less violent. And I guess I didn't really like either of them that much because I didn't even remember the big twist from 8 years ago. And then when I saw it, I didn't care. So I like Naomi Watts a lot, but she's been making a lot of, this is like her 6th or 7th remake of a foreign film. And it's, I think, the second movie she's made where she gets tortured by Austrian, in an Austrian remake, because the first one was Funny Games, the Michael Haneke movie, which I saw Funny Games, which is insane, and I have not seen the remake, and I'm fine with that. And then I actually went to the movies, and I saw a movie that, like tonight's selection, is also historical fiction. It didn't compare well just because it's hard to follow RRR, but we saw The Woman King. And that's the Viola Davis movie about the Amazons of Dahomey. And it's just, as a movie, it wants to be Braveheart, Gladiator, that sort of thing. It's, as a movie, okay. There's some really good performances in it. Viola Davis is great. Lashana Lynch is great. But as history, it's kind of nonsense because the Kingdom of Dahomey was built on slavery. And the Amazons of Dahomey were a big part of conquering neighboring communities and then capturing men and women to be sacrificed religiously and then to be sold. And the premise of the movie is that the leader of the Amazons wants, maybe we shouldn't do that anymore. And I mean, there's some real people, like Gezo is the king, played by John Boyega, and he in the movie is considering stopping it, but in real life he actually killed his brother who was thinking about stopping it. But I don't think it makes the movie bad as a movie, but it's history that I actually studied that history, and I was very curious to see what they do with it. And what they did with it was kind of pretend that's not what the history is, which isn't in and of itself bad. I mean, Braveheart is straight nonsense as far as history goes, but it's a really exciting movie. And this just wasn't as exciting. So I think it's designed to be an Oscar contender of some kind. I don't know if it'll get there or not, but It did well this weekend. It was the #1 movie. So, The Woman King.
Wow. Okay. I saw a trailer. For
Boycott thing on that on Twitter.
Yeah, it's getting blasted for what you were talking about, Drew.
Well, I mean, these are people who are passionately against the movie when they never even heard of Dahomey 10 minutes before they started tweeting about it. So it's a little silly that all of a sudden there's these passionate people who want to preserve the history of West African kingdoms that fell to colonialism. I mean, like, it's the same kind of people that say, well, slavery only happened because the black people in Africa sold the slaves. It's like, well, so what? What kind of weird what about thing is that? Like, if it's not historically accurate, I think that's worth pointing out. That doesn't make it a better or worse movie, because as a movie, it's just okay. But people always find something to freak out about. And so this is The Woman King this week, and it'll be something else next week.
Now, wait a minute. Are you saying in Braveheart that William Wallace didn't really sleep with the Queen of England?
Well, it's not just that. I mean, he was a furry little troll man. There's no way he was Mel Gibson sexy time. And a lot of the depiction of it, but but who cares? Because it's a thrilling movie. I mean, the movie we're going to talk about tonight is also historical fiction. I love historical fiction.
One thing I resented about The Patriot, which
that's terrible,
is that they made the guy Tarleton, who was like the horrible villain, like very British, but in real life, the guy was. Well, I'm Tarleton. Who's the main villain? It's sort of like, gee, I know we want to make the British look bad. This guy was really an American, just fighting for the British.
Well, I think the movie tonight we're going to talk about had a take on the British, so that's interesting, especially now.
It made the Patriot look like the British were all great guys.
I know, but okay. Well, all right, John, what'd you watch?
I watched, first of all, I watched 60 Minutes last night, and I am super excited to announce to all our fans out there that the pandemic is over. So I am extremely excited about that.
And
so
inflation isn't happening.
Yeah, give us a like. Well, no, inflation's up an inch, but I don't want to get into that.
It's funny. I thought we don't talk about politics. I thought we don't talk about politics.
No, I'm not. I'm talking about the
pandemic.
I'm super excited about that.
You're a hypocrite.
So
what'd you watch?
Here's the reason. Here's what I watched. So
don't do that.
I'm a big Casablanca fan, obviously. And a movie came out right after it called Passage to Marseille, basically with the same cast, directed by Michael Curtiz, starring Humphrey Bogart, Sidney Greenstreet, Peter Lorre, Claude Rains. I've never seen it before, so I watched it. It's a really interesting movie about Devil Island's escapees who end up on a boat because they want to fight for the French resistance because Germany is about to take over France. And it's that whole thing. It was interesting because what I didn't realize about it wasn't really straight storytelling. They had flashbacks within flashbacks. So that far ago, I don't remember ever seeing anything like that. Humphrey Bogart was really good in the movie. He wasn't playing Rick from Casablanca. And spoilers, he gets killed at the end, which was really surprising. And there was a subplot where they talk about he got arrested. That's how he ended up on Devil's Island, mistakenly arrested. He was innocent, but he married a woman who had a child while Humphrey Bogart was away. So Humphrey Bogart's never met his child. But when he went on bombing runs with the French military, he would drop a canister with a message to the wife and child. He constantly did that. And the last time he wasn't able to do it because he got shot over it. It was kind of strange. So he never had any scenes with the boy. Yeah, it was really interesting. But I think if you like Casablanca, you'll like this. Greenstreet was the bad guy in it. He was really good. The captain of the ship, I don't know the actor's name. I really liked him in this. And I really liked Humphrey Bogart. So again, if you like Bogart, 1944, Passage to Marseille, check it out.
Also, I'd recommend Across the Pacific, another one that had Sidney Greenstreet.
Yeah, they're playing that now, too. I haven't seen that. I'm going to watch that, too.
Oh, but talking about the flashback in the flashback, that was one thing I liked about the movie Deadpool.
Yeah.
They're in a flashback, and then they go into another flashback. He looks right at the camera and goes, yeah, we're going from a flashback into another flashback. So they were very proud to point that out.
Is that what you watched, Sean? Deadpool? Is that it? You done?
No, one thing I watched was This Is the End. I don't know if you ever saw it.
Oh, it's
That's
fun.
the one with all the actors in L.A.
Yeah.
getting the end of the
Yeah,
world.
it's the apocalypse.
Yeah.
And, they all play themselves. And somehow I'm watching. I think the film's hilarious.
It's so
Somehow
good.
watching them, I think that really is them, too. I don't think there's much writing.
Well, I was going to say, it seemed like it was improv, right? The whole thing seemed like it was one big improv.
Well, they
Maybe
were
it wasn't.
playing on. I think they were
found
playing.
their vanity and everything just hilarious.
They were playing, heightened versions of themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what we see
a
is
little,
themselves.
a little higher.
Yeah.
I watched a comedian named Joe Coy.
Joe Coy.
Oh, does he have a new
my
special?
gosh, he's so funny. He's a Filipino, and I work with a lot of Filipinos in my job, my blood bank job. But they're usually nurses, doctors, or med techs. And this guy really has a funny bit where he talks about he's just such a funny guy because Filipinos are known for joking around, singing, having all these talents, and then seriously medicine. It's amazing how he had it right.
Where is it playing?
Netflix. Joe Coy, Koy.
Okay. And very funny. You thought it was really funny.
Hilarious.
Okay.
This is the end. Also, no, that's on. Netflix. It's on Netflix.
Netflix.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how long has that been? That's an old
It's
movie.
got to be 6-7 years now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Isn't
saw it in
Natalie
the
Portman
movies
in that?
twice.
Doesn't she kick ass in that movie? Natalie Portman.
No, it's the girl
No.
from Harry Potter. What's
Emma
her
Yeah,
name?
the
Watson.
other one.
It's Emma Watson.
Emma
Watson.
Watson.
I shouldn't say girl, the woman.
And
She's
then
a girl.
Channing
Channing
Tatum
Tatum
becomes
has
a
a
bitch
great-
dog or something.
yeah,
Somebody
he's a
becomes
great
bitch
cameo.
dog. Yeah.
I love him. It's so
There's
funny.
a lot of great like
I'm
the Michael
going
Cera
to
bit.
dumbing.
I love Michael Cera plays like this completely drugged out,
Right.
raging a-hole. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's hilarious. I really recommend the film. Of course, now we shouldn't be watching Franco, but
You can watch everybody else in it.
yeah, we can watch
Yeah,
everyone
that's a
else.
tough call. We're starting to lose a lot of people with that. All right, I saw two things. and
Franco was
since-
asking for it though with what he did.
Who was Franco? Yeah, definitely was.
What did he do? I'm not.
Franco, the main complaint about him is he started teaching an acting class on how to do sex scenes.
I mean,
all
it's
these
weirdly
women in,
genius,
and,
but
like-
sick at the same time.
It's
like
yeah.
because
So-
these women
It was
trust
like
him.
so he could touch
It's
all these
James
women.
Franco. It's awful what he was doing.
Well, perfect rehearsal means perfect performance. Just remember that.
Okay, that's what Cal Ripken Sr.
Right.
said about practice. All right, I saw two things, and since John brought up politics, I'll throw the first one out. I saw Trump's cult-like thing he did in Ohio with the strange music and the #1 salutes. It was just awesome. I'm sure, John, you caught that on one of your channels.
No, did he have a scary red background like Hitler?
Okay, yeah, like mine. I'm going bad Biden.
Oh,
I'm
you
going
know
dark
what?
Biden,
Now
too.
that you mention it,
I'm going dark Biden.
Yours,
No,
is,
I went.
yours is more like Amsterdam.
Right.
some weekend.
I went to the movies and I saw
Yay.
For
the
you.
the new horror film called Barbarian.
Oh,
How
how's
is that?
It's very good, and a couple interesting things I want to talk about. One is it's a great horror movie. Stars Bill Skarsgård, Georgina Campbell, Justin Long. I don't want to give. If I give anything, I give away the plot. But basically, she plays a woman who comes up to a door, an Airbnb, in a rundown neighborhood in Detroit. Bill Skarsgård happens to be also renting the Airbnb at the same time. So is this interplay between should she go in and stay with him for one night? She's got a job interview the next day, and then all kinds of things happen. But the interesting part of the film, the interesting thing about the film is it's directed by a guy named Zach Kreger. And I'm friends with Zach's brother, Jake Kreger, who I do some work for. And I'm trying to get Zach to come on the podcast to talk about Barbarian. I'm working
be
through his
great.
brother, Jake.
nice?
I did an infomercial at Jake's mother's house a long time ago. So I have a relationship with these guys. I didn't realize they were brothers until I went home and Googled Zach's name and realized he had a brother, Jake. And I immediately texted Jake. But the film is fantastic. So if he comes on, I suggest everybody has to go watch it or figure out. I don't know if it's, I don't even think it's streaming.
streaming?
Right now. I don't
No?
think so.
In theaters.
But it's a pretty decent horror movie, and it's got a lot of subtext that's kind of fascinating, and it's a lot of fun. And it was written and directed by Zach. and I think he did a pretty good job. And Justin Long is fantastic in it.
Justin Long would be good.
And can I say, I think it's really great that Detroit as a city imploded so that we can do all these horror movies like It Follows and Don't Breathe and all this stuff. Because otherwise we'd have to go to Bulgaria or Romania.
Or
we
Baltimore.
can just keep it here.
They
in
really,
America.
they really play on the Detroit.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's
amazing.
It's wild. It's wild. And Detroit's a big part of this movie. So, all right, now to Drew's film he had never seen. I don't think any of us had seen this one. Drew, what'd you bring?
So what I brought is a movie I've been looking forward to seeing for quite a while. It's called RRR. It's an Indian movie. It's a Tollywood movie. It's not Bollywood. Bollywood is the Indian movie industry out of Mumbai. And Tollywood, there's actually two Tollywoods, but I think the more well-known Tollywood is the one that made this movie. It's not in Hindi, it's in Telugu, but the movie is done in, I think, 5 different languages. The version that's on Netflix is a Hindi dub with the English characters speaking English and the Indian characters sometimes speaking English to the English characters. It doesn't matter because this movie is so fucking awesome. I can't believe how incredibly entertaining this movie is. And it was only 3 hours and 7 minutes, so you're welcome. You had 20 more minutes to spend this week than you did with Seven Samurai. And this movie is, I think you can talk about it on a bunch of different levels, and I look forward to talking about it with you guys and hearing about it from you guys. But the basic premise of the movie, as I said, it's a historical fiction. There's 2 figures from Indian history and Indian revolutionary anti-colonial history. And the premise of the movie is that what if they met? They never met in real life. There is a period of time where we don't really know where they are. And so that's sort of maybe they met in this period of time. It would be like if you said, I'm going to make a movie with John Brown and George Washington. Like they're real people, but they didn't meet. And it's a kind of historical, I guess, just play that you have in something like Inglourious Bastards, where you know that's
or Abraham Lincoln, Vampire Slayer.
Right, exactly. Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter, which is a very underrated movie. But this movie is essentially about these 2 men. One of them is trying to rescue a girl who was stolen from her village by a British colonial governor and his wife. And he is brought into friendship and then conflict with the other main character, who is I think it's Indian Special Police. I'm not really familiar with if it's more police or more army, but essentially he's an Indian who works for the British in a military capacity. So he's charged with hunting down the other character, but they've never met. So they actually become friends first. And this movie is just the most joyful, exuberant, insane, fun, violent, crazy movie I've seen in a long time. And I loved it. If I had the chance, I'd watch it again, and again, and probably again.
Mildly. I watched the first half the first night, right? And I was, oh my God, the size of this spider that's walking in front of me is insane. Oh my God. Oh.
Well, I've told people that they should watch this movie, and if they think about the runtime, I say it has actually a natural break in the movie. Yes. I mean, that wasn't actually an intermission in the theatrical screenings.
That's a question.
But I said the thing about the movie is that like right before the intermission, there's a scene that's so gigantic and spectacular. You're like, I think this is the end of the movie. And not only is it not the end of the movie, it's fantastic that it's not the end of the movie. Yeah. So there is a natural place to break it up.
We did not see the intermission in the show. It just went from one scene.
Right. In the Netflix version, it doesn't stop for 5 minutes.
Because in India, I guess they have what they call intervals, which are intermissions.
Right.
Yes. So that's where I ended the first night, was after that scene, right? You're talking about with all the animals.
Say what
that's
scene.
The one, right? It's where all the animals, the party scene. Yeah. Okay. I almost gave up on the film. I'm like, Jesus, the rest of the film is like this. Because I kind of liked it, but I was still a little bit. I am so glad I picked it up the next night and finished it, because I totally bought into what was going on. I totally just let myself go. And by the end of it, with all the crazy shit that was going on and what those 2 guys were pulling off through the whole thing, I was invested and wanted to see it all the way, play it all the way through. And I watched that whole music video they do at the end, which I guess is a song about the two revolutionary guys, and they're explaining the history of the film, right? It was just so fun. Joyous is the right word. And I was shocked to see Ray Stevenson as the colonel, I guess. And the woman is from Indiana Jones. That's
more shocking. Allison Doody.
She played
Allison Doody,
right? Yeah,
wow.
I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, but the two guys just were in the John Belushi looking dude. All I could see was John Belushi with the guy with the beard. Yeah.
Well, let's back up on that a second, because the one thing that we don't like, I don't know that much about Indian movies in general.
Nothing.
But those two actors, it's NTR Jr. and I'm looking at his name, Ram Charan. Those are basically the biggest stars in Tollywood. They're gigantic box office stars. They make a ton of money. Yeah, they're absolutely magnetic. They look like and feel like movie stars. But this movie is so big because they had never done a movie before. And the RRR originally was just like a placeholder title, and it stood for NTR, R, and Ram, and then Rajamouli, the director, and they decided to just call it that. It would be like if you made a movie with, like, I don't know, Tom Cruise and Brad Pitt and Steven Spielberg, and you just called it, like, you know, CPS or something, and everybody would know what you're talking about. So those two guys are gigantic stars, and you can see in every possible way why they are.
Wait, did you say that? Well, I thought I heard you say this was their first movie. No,
this was their first movie together. These guys have been a force in the industry for a long time. So just the fact that they were making a movie together was a big event. Never mind, that's the most expensive Indian movie ever made. It's one of the most successful movies ever made. Yeah, and it's definitely all
on the screen.
Oh, that's for sure.
Yeah,
it reminded me of sort of like one of those team up where you get with like Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger, except these guys are more younger and more magnetic, you know.
Well,
it's like you could tell they were big stars. Yeah, and they had movie star charisma, and here they were, you know, like Clark Gable and.
I won't lie, when they meet under the bridge, when they rescue the boy and they grasp hands, it is just like Carl Weathers and Arnold Schwarzenegger grabbing each other at the beginning of Predator, and their muscles bulging. It's like very male, except that movie leads to tension between those men, and this movie leads to love and friendship. And
they had a bromance. That was a bromance they had.
This is a big bromance movie.
Yeah, and what was I going to say? The emotion and the sappiness. They had no shame about what they're showing on the screen, which is just
it's melodrama. Yes, that's right.
I mean, it's
that's not usually what Americans are into, but I bought into the whole thing.
Yeah. What little I've seen of Bollywood movies, and I know this is not Bollywood, is big emotion. You know, lots of color, lots of action, lots of movement, lots of dancing. You know, and we were talking about this before, on the nose songs too.
Well, yeah. Explaining the whole plot.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. And Slumdog Millionaire, I haven't seen the whole thing, but don't they do a big dance at the end of that one too?
Yes. Why
are you laughing? They're doing a big Indian style Bollywood.
It's because you pronounce millionaire like the Indian host of the show, who wants to be a millionaire.
Is that what I said, millionaire?
But the movie's actually
he spent 3 hours in this movie. It's easy to get for him.
Yes, gonna have to drop a sound effect on you guys. Chris, did you like this movie?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I mean, almost from I think he's a little too influenced by Zack Snyder, but you know, hands the rapey, and the super graphic violence. It was funny because I started watching this film and. You know, it looks great. Everything looks great. The two guys, like you said, they're truly movie stars. You can just see it beaming off of them. And, but at the same time, I was like, you know, this movie would like, and I don't think I'm exaggerating here. If you cut out just half of the slow-mo in this movie, just regular speed, it would be 20 minutes shorter. I mean, there's like legitimately 45 minutes of slow-mo in this film. Point being, but it's, you know, that's where I kind of, and it had that kind of, you know, Zack Snyder did all that kind of heightened action with Spartans almost flying through the air and, you know, and all that kind of stuff. But what I really enjoyed about this film was the fact that it was just unabashedly like of its culture. Like it is truly like, it's super pro Indian. It's, you know what? Our guys are the best dancers. You guys suck. Your women are going to love us because we're awesome. And, you know, it was just 100% pro, unabashedly loving themselves. And I think that's fantastic. It's like a movie from their culture. And it's because I haven't seen a lot of Indian films either, you know, and like, but it was just so unabashedly like, we're awesome. And then like that dance scene in the middle, and it was just like huge, and it was just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then it's kind of this dance off scene, and it just was great. But like you said, but then it's like, oh, and by the way, the guy that you thought is actually working for the man, as it were, is not. He's actually, you know, undercover to get more guns so they can fight back. Now, the one thing that I did find a little weird about the film, and of course I have very little knowledge of Indian history as a general rule, especially, you know, I mean, I know a little bit about them as, you know, being ruled by Great Britain and all that kind of stuff in the East India Company. But the whole idea that like, it's funny, this movie is so violent. It's so full of action and revolt and anger and everything. And it kind of made me just chuckle a little bit inside, because I was like, but in the end, they won through peaceful nonviolence. You know, that's how they ended up kind of getting rid of Great Britain, you know, with Gandhi and things like that. So, but at the same time, it, you know, it celebrates a part of their history that I had zero idea about, especially when you look at that ending sequence, and they're obviously paying homage to,
right.
I mean, they're bringing up these images of people who I'm sorry, I don't know who they are,
Right.
but they're probably like the equivalent of their George Washington and their founding fathers. And obviously from different time periods, you could just tell that by their dress, but it was still, yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's one of those ones where I actually found myself on Netflix, like clicking the more like this button to see what else might be kind of fun and crazy to watch, you know?
I got to believe this is one of a kind. This thing was just amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing.
it really, but it was like, but at the same time, it was just, you know, it was just really cool. Yeah, and like you said, it just had that kind of, you know, it had that Zack Snyder feel to me, but like I said, just a little less graphic. You know, there wasn't as much like, you know.
Well, it got, you know, that first scene where the colonel, who's the main guy? He starts talking about the bullet, how much a bullet costs.
The governor.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And he does
Ray
that
Stevenson.
speech about don't waste the bullet on her, the mother of, and then that guy picks up that tree limb and smacks her across the head.
Oh,
and that's
yeah.
how this
That'd be
movie's
awful.
starting. It's like, what is going on?
Debbie was thinking maybe we could show this to the grandkids. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, no, probably
Teach him a
not.
little
I
something.
think it was rated PG-13, right? I think that's what it was rated.
It should have been rated R.
I agree. But it wasn't. It should have been. I agree with that.
John,
It's
did you
definitely
enjoy
rated
the
R.
film?
Yeah, you know, I thought I did think it was too long because I watched it in one sitting.
Couldn't have
But
enough.
yeah, you know, I've never seen an Indian movie, so I've always said that on this show that I love seeing something in some place I've never seen before, and I've never seen anything like that. I mean, the setting of the movie, all those people. This was a movie. As I was watching it, I did enjoy it, but I really wanted to see the making of this movie because I wanted to know how they did some of the stuff that they did. And then when you all this action, all this pathos, and then they break into a show tune. And I was like, that just caught me completely off guard. And the dancing was like phenomenal. Those two guys doing the dancing, I was like, wow, look at these guys dancing. And that was hardcore what they were doing. And then at the end too, I liked the dance number at the end. It was over the top and crazy. And if you like that kind of thing, you'll like this movie. The two actors were absolutely magnetic. The guy that played the cop, I was a little more impressed with. I really thought he was great in this movie and such a presence that he had.
He smoldered.
Yeah, he really
Amazing.
did. And I mean, listen, you know, it's in this type of movie, the damage that these two men sustain and are able to still do stuff is pretty incredible, especially with the cat and nine tails with the hooks on them and stuff.
Well, and
when
one
he's tearing
guy
beams.
took a claw to the heart.
Yeah, right. So that was a little. You know,
Well, they
that's
put
my-
the powder on the ragu.
Yeah, he had a
ragu.
root.
Yeah.
He had a root that he rubbed on it.
That stuff.
But I did, like I said, it's something I have never seen before. I actually knew about this because I watched the Critical Drinkers podcast, and he actually talked about this movie before you picked it. So I watched him talking about it, and he had his criticism of it, but he said this is the best movie that nobody's watching. So I think if you want a good time, it is long, and I think you're probably better off like what Ralph did. Watch it in 2 sittings. I think that might be better for you.
That definitely helped. I don't think I would have made it all the way through if I did.
Yeah, I mean, it was tough.
I'm glad I did.
There were sections it was tough to get through.
Now I can't believe you Star Wars nerds haven't like hit all the Star Wars themes in this thing, and down to the motorcycle, the evil empire, right down to that motorcycle going through the tiny little window to take out all the TNT, and some of the relationships. It's a Star Wars movie.
Well, you could also make the you could make the claim that Star Wars is, I mean, Joseph Campbell said that Star Wars is based on the monomyth, and even later George Lucas admitted.
I understand, but down to some kind of weapon going through a tiny window to explode the whole evil empire, and they really made the Brits were I think they told us what they thought of the Brits in this one.
Well, they were sympathetic to the one woman that befriended him.
Well, because she was
so it wasn't all Darth Vader, but
and she reminded me of Princess Diana. She's sort of like used the same kind of phraseology that Diana used to, how she used to speak. But one thing I loved about the narrative of the guy who was the village protector, I just loved that part. It just like endeared you to him. The not so handsome brother, if they're 2 brothers. So he was more like the manly guy, and the police officer was more so handsome. Oh my gosh, he was so good looking and had skills, to protect. I mean, to really survive that initial scene to go get that
with all those people. I mean, that was crazy.
Oh my gosh! I said, how does this happen? Is he Superman or what?
But he certainly leapt over the fence like he was Superman.
And the other guy outran a tiger and a wolf.
Right.
And
that scene was great too. That was a great scene.
A tiger claw directly into the chest.
Also, also you don't even realize at the time. You think they're hunting something to eat it, and they're actually setting up the last scene before the intermission. They're capturing the animals. It's just the party that's a little more violent than the first party, than the dance party.
Yeah, the dance.
I mean, I loved watching this movie, and I watched it with my wife Kelly, and Kelly had an absolute blast with it, and she said she had another layer of fun watching me watch it because I was so into it. And it's funny you mentioned Zack Snyder. This movie reminded me in terms of its tone of I can see the Zack Snyder thing, especially with the slow motion, which I really thought was going to bother me for the first few minutes of the movie, and then I stopped caring because I was so into it. But it reminded me of Stephen Chow, who did Kung Fu Hustle.
Oh yeah,
which is a completely like zany, crazy, creative action movie that you can't pull off without the athleticism and the stunts and the craft of filmmaking and stuff. So this seemed like it was come from that. But Kelly said this was I think a great observation. I don't know if you guys ever watched The Grinder. It was a Rob Lowe comedy show that was on for one season. Fred Savage was in it. Yeah. Absolutely hysterical show. But he's got essentially a catchphrase where somebody, because he used to be a lawyer on television, and now he's a lawyer back with his family's practice, and it's just the whole thing it's so funny and ridiculous. But somebody will say something like, "Oh, there's no way that'll ever happen," and Rob Lowe will stop, and the camera will go in on him, and he'll go, "Yeah, but what if it did?" And Kelly said that's got to be the conversations that they had about making this movie, because everything that they did was just the craziest versions of things. I mean, I was like,
at the end,
losing my mind when they're rescuing the kid and they're jumping around, they're talking to each other with hand signals. I mean, like the whole thing was crazy.
They set that whole piggyback thing during their bromance, where
that's right.
The two of them were just giving each other the one piggyback. Yeah. So at the end, when they do that scene and the guy's on his back, and the other guy is loading the guns as the other guy is
so amazing.
And climbing the tower. Don't forget climbing the tower.
That's what I mean. The flip on by that time, I was like, okay, I don't care what they do. I'm buying all of it because it's just so over the top and so fun. It just caught me, and I was not expecting that the second night. I thought I was gonna have to drudge through this thing. And by the end of it, I was cheering. I was like, I want to see more of this. I watched the whole thing at the end. It's just fantastic.
Well, I want to say that
Such
you know
powerful, like
so I was going to talk about the piggyback thing too, because I think it's just an emblematic of the storytelling and what you're saying. Of where you're like, okay, well, they're really going to do anything in this movie. The scene I keep coming back to is the dance scene. It's about an hour in. I cannot stop hearing that song Nacho Nacho in my head. I admit I'm singing along in Hindi and sometimes a little bit in Telugu, because if you look for the soundtrack, there's 5 different versions of the song and it's all crazy. But I love the way that they move the story forward. They move their relationship forward. They showed that the British colonial rule is about things like stealing children and smacking young women in the head with logs, but it's also about constant casual humiliation. So for them to get to stand up, and all those waiters who bowed their heads in shame, and the black drummer who doesn't have a line in the movie, but he lives the full experience of watching these guys. And then it ends with what I call Chekhov's piggyback ride, because as you said, they set it up and it's ridiculous. He's carrying him around. And I had no idea it was going to pay off the way it was going to pay off. And when he, as you said, when he reached down and he did the bolts for him, I was like, that is as cool as Schwarzenegger's flipping his lever action shotgun while he's on the motorcycle in Terminator 2. It's just like instantly, like it's just so cool. The whole movie is so cool.
Well, what about the perfume commercial? The perfume commercial, horse versus motorcycle ride that they did.
That's the bromance. Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Well, they had a whole montage of their building relationship. I do have a question though. Where can, because obviously, because one distracting thing I did find was all the English speaking actors you could tell were speaking English, and I didn't understand, and they were dubbed. So is there a version where you hear what they're actually saying? I mean, where is that?
You may have watched the Portuguese dub then.
Because John, when I turned it on, right?
Yeah.
And started watching it, it was obviously subtitled, and they were speaking what sounded to me like Spanish, but I'm like, but that's not Spanish.
Right.
And I actually stopped at about 20 minutes in, and for some reason, Netflix defaults to the Brazilian Portuguese version. So
not
you
the Hindi
the movie must do really well in Brazil.
Oh, so if you switch it to the Hindu track, then the English
the actors are speaking English.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it
I
says
didn't know
Hindi,
that.
but
I
it's
found
also
that
in
really
English.
distracting.
I didn't need that. I just was looking at I just want to see the words.
No, I would have liked.
Because I know Ray Stevenson. You could see Ray Stevenson was speaking.
Yeah, you could. That's what I meant. That's why I was really looking at. Well, when you got Ray Stevenson, why wouldn't you use his real voice?
What's funny about that is that the only version that's available on Netflix is the Hindi dub with the English speaking actors speaking English, and then other language dubs. The movie's actually Telugu. So when you are watching the movie, it's the actors are doing their own dubs, but you're actually watching a Hindi language dub over the Telugu that's in the movie. So either way, you're watching something dubbed. But I mean, when you watch more than 20 minutes of the movie and then you realize what you've done, and you figure it out, it does feel a little bit different. And then you can decide if you like the Portuguese actors' voices better than the
well, I mean, I was reading the subtitles anyway, so it's not like I was focusing on their voices. But I did find that because you could tell Stevenson was mouthing the words and it wasn't matching the dub.
Right.
It's matching the subtitles, but not the dub.
But it doesn't even matter.
I went to Italy. While I was in Italy, I decided to go to see a movie while I was in Italy because I'm a movie fan. And I saw Gladiator. And I saw it in Italian. And the person selling me the ticket's like, oh, we show it in English in an hour if you want to wait. And I'm like, no, I'm here to see it in Italian. And the dubbing was so good. It didn't look like dubbing at all. They were all speaking Italian. And I think they do a crappy job for a lot of films released in this country, like the Godzilla movies or something. But over there, you could just tell, just watching this one movie, the care that went into the dubbing. And, and I was thinking the same thing too. This is a Hindi movie, but it wasn't, I went and switched it because I was like, first thing I did was go and try to see what languages it was in. And I'm like, oh, no English dub version. But then again, half the movie's in English anyway.
For me, it was the music and the visuals were just insane.
That scene where we introduced the policeman and he goes
by the way,
one guy.
Yeah.
That could be the climax of a movie.
Yeah.
Okay,
That
so
sequence
all
was so
the
good.
and they do that disclaimer at the beginning that no animals were harmed because all the animals were CG.
With
right?
CGI, yeah.
Yep.
That scene where he's getting tortured and he sings his song and that whole crowd starts to mill around.
You're talking about when Beam is being whipped.
When
You
Beam
mean-
is being whipped
Yeah.
and he's singing the song and all the extras, that big crowd scene, those are all real people.
Yeah.
That is not
There's
CGI.
no CGI crowds. It's pretty amazing.
It just blows my
Pretty
mind.
amazing.
And you said this cost 70 million, only 70 million?
Yeah, it's the most expensive Indian movie ever made. It
Wow.
cost
In an
$70
American
million.
film, that
It's
tiger
like-
would be 70 million.
It's like it's like the third highest grossing Indian movie of all time.
That's incredibly insane.
It's amazing.
They put all that money on that screen. That wasn't,
Well, it's funny because if anybody was going to get this money, it's these people that made this movie. I mean, this director S.S. Rajamouli. Here, I'll give you an example. Everybody in Tollywood and broader India knows who this guy is. He's made 2 gigantic movies, and I won't try to pronounce their names, but they are both on Netflix. That are, I think, a depiction of the more of the stories of Indian gods, and they're supposed to be spectacular movies. But if you remember, you might not remember because I didn't know what I was looking at the time. During Sholay, which is the song at the end where they're singing and they're showing all the different Indian revolutionary figures. At a certain point, the actors are singing, and there's Sita and there's Jenny, and then this guy with gray hair starts singing. And he sings a verse or two. That's the director. And like, you're like, why? He's not in the movie. Who is this guy? Well, then if you really want to be entertained, go to YouTube and look up theater reaction scenes of people in India watching this movie.
Oh, wow.
Because it is completely insane and entertaining. Like the clip, which obviously I'm trying to learn that now too. The clip in the dance scene where the 2 guys dance and they do that move where they freeze and their heads go like this. That was released. It's like an 8 or 10 second clip before the movie came out. And when that scene came on in the movie, all these people started jumping up and dancing it because they've been learning it and practicing the steps. And it's all these things about audiences that would be so annoying to me if they happened, except it's so joyous and it's in the spirit of the movie. And it's just wonderful. It's delirious.
Yeah.
And the other thing about the movie that I can't speak that much about, and I won't speak that much about as far as what it means, is that you can talk about it as a movie. You can talk about it as an expression of modern Indian nationalism, which is controversial. And you can talk about it as a depiction of the class system and how it may or may not support that. And I think it's interesting to learn about the imagery of Ram, and at the end in the big battle when he's wearing he's got the bow and arrow and the red outfit and stuff, and that's not only the symbol of the revolutionary who he played, the real one in real life. It's also a symbol of that god, which has been taken as a symbol of Indian nationalism, which is on the rise. So there's a lot of different ways to experience it that we just don't know because we're not from that country, we're not from that culture. And I love that also doesn't take anything away from our experience of it. It's like
I was wondering throughout. I was sitting there the whole time. I absolutely loved this movie, and it's great to find a movie. I enjoy lots of movies. But it's good to see something that's so out there that it's like seeing movies for the first time again. And that's how I felt watching this movie. And I thought, as much as I like this movie now, how much more would I like it if I understood everything that was going on? And also, I think there's a religious aspect too, because wasn't one of those 2 characters a Muslim and one a Hindu?
Yeah.
Well, Beam plays Akhtar.
hostility.
He's pretending to be a Muslim. He's undercover as Akhtar the Muslim.
Yeah.
So he's not. They're both
Hindi.
Telugu Indian. Well, Indian Muslims.
Well, yeah,
Indians
but
Muslims.
they're both in that.
But they're
back.
both on the other side of that divide. Yes.
But it's also good. It shows harmony between the Muslims and the Hindus, which has not been always historically accurate. But it's great. That first scene where Ram runs out and gets that one person out of this crowd of hundreds. That scene was absolutely amazing. And you see him really getting beat up. And then come back later with the scene where they catch the tiger. And that is absolutely amazing, where he's holding it. And it's very realistic. I think the special effects with that tiger, that is really well done.
Well,
and that's
three of
just
the
beginning
all-time It's three of the all-time greatest character introductions. That villain, in that first scene of that movie is a truly evil person. You know exactly who you think Ram is as far as his character and his motivation, but you also know what he can do. Like, I thought you start watching, you think there's going to be some part of that fight in the crowd where he like gets piled on and then he throws them all off like a superhero or something, but he doesn't. He just fights his way out. I mean, he's still acting like a superhero in the sense that he can do this and all that sort of stuff, but you get a sense of him, and then Beam is roaring back at a tiger. You know exactly who he is. I mean, for a 3-hour movie, I think the script is actually really very economical and efficient because it delivers so much so quickly. And though I know I missed things because I'm not of that cultural background, I'm not of Indian heritage, I didn't miss anything as far as what was happening in the movie. And I didn't miss anything as far as the storytelling and the twists and the turns and the emotional melodrama. I mean, my God, to see him, like you said, whipped and then he starts singing. There's an awful lot of resonance in that historically that I didn't see, but God damn, I mean, like, it was just so moving and incredible. And that's sort of the ridiculous thing. Why does that work? It shouldn't work. And it all works. The whole thing works.
Yeah.
And you know what scene I love? I love the venomous snake scene. And who would ever think that would be the out, for him to get out. And it was just so fantastic. That little part of that movie just show you how inventive they were to create such a line to get out of this situation. That was great. Another thing I liked about the culture, and I know we've all seen this with a person from India, they always go like this when they're talking romantically or talking about relationships. The not so handsome one.
Stop calling Beam that. NTR Jr. is a big movie star. Settle down.
He's handsome.
But he was a manly.
He's John
They're
Pesci
two different handsomes because Beam was more masculine, and the other one was more, oh my gosh, Brad Pitty. Whatever.
That's
there's
fair.
such a word. But I just love that part where they shake their head back and forth. I love that about the culture.
What amazing charisma between those guys too.
Yeah.
That's I saw an interview with the director, and he was talking about that sort of thing. And when you're seeing the scenes where the Indian characters are dealing with the British colonials, who are, I mean, they're the villains in the movie, but that they're also part of a genuinely evil endeavor in history. And that head bob thing that they do deliberately in that scene before they start dancing is kind of playing into what the British would expect of them. So they do the little thing. It's just like, oh, that's what these people who are beneath me do, that sort of thing, which is why the fact that they found the courage, which, I mean, the dancing started because Ram stopped Beam from being humiliated. When we already know Beam fights tigers, like, he doesn't have to put up with that, but you have to know your place in order to stay safe until it's time to get the guns and load, aim, and shoot and really go to war. And of course, like, I don't remember which one of you guys said it, that's not even how they won. Like, I feel like if this was an American movie, there'd be some little thing at the end where some little Indian kid with round glasses looks at it and goes, I don't know if that's going to work. And his parents are like, come on, Mahatma, let's get out of here. Like, it was just all crazy. It was all crazy.
This was,
fantastic movie. I should say this is a excellent film. Excellent.
Yep.
I would never think to watch it, but it was beautiful.
Zooby dooby, zooby dooby, pampara, zooby dooby, param pam.